polyphenol olive oils, which we are absolutely delighted to have Nicolas with us again. I think we can tune back into what happened last time, can't we,
Yes, please do. It was wonderful. It's incredible the amount of work that Nicolas has put into this, and he explains in detail all the benefits of the oil, which is quite amazing actually, because he explained the importance of production, of doing the process, and then packaging and all this kind of maintenance. And that's just the same thing that we do with our compost, right, Nick? We can't just make microbes and leave them over there. We have to worry about the process, the materials, the maintenance, and how we actually ship it and how we use it.
Yeah, so guys, if you want to tune in and look at that again, please do so. And hey, look, please tell us where you're tuning in from today. We love to see where you're all coming from. So please put that in the chat. So, Webinar 2, How Regenerative Agriculture Helped Create the World's Most Powerful Olive Oil. So that's what we're going to be looking at and talking with Nicolas Etienne today. You are with us for 2 hours, Nicolas. We are absolutely delighted to have you for such a long time. And I'm sure the questions will come in thick and fast after your presentation, because I'm sure there'll be a lot of people who are going to want to know what is going on. So thank you. So, Nicolas, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nicolas. By trade, I'm an environmental engineer. And I came across permaculture and then soil biology about 20 years ago. And it completely made sense for me. Everything, all the pieces of everything that have been studied together finally came together under a holistic framework. And that's what I've been doing since. So I focus on growing crop in difficult condition and specifically dry land. I like that because the harder the condition, the less options we have. And the less options we have, the easier life is. So about 13 years ago now, I've been in Cyprus. I came for a project that I will explain today what we did. And I started focusing on olives the last 13 years. And by doing so, we created an olive oil with the highest polyphenol content in the world.
Fantastic. Thank you, Nicolas. And Isidora, please tell us about yourself.
Well, yes, my name is Isidora. I live in Spain right now. I work with the Holy Trinity of the Mediterranean, which is olive trees, vineyards, and nut trees, and a little bit more cereals as well. I work with farmers. I collaborate with agricultural schools here locally, and I love to spread, and I am a mentor for the Soil Food Web. And yeah, really happy to be here. Thank you, Nick. How about yourself?
Well, yeah. So Nick Padwick, I'm a farmer from the UK, Soil Food Web consultant, and instructor, and we've just had a great 2 weeks, haven't we, Isidora, together at the UK workshop with 24 amazing people who came to us to learn how to make compost. And I've got my own company called Wild Soils, where we help and support people on that amazing journey. So, what we're going to do, we're going to mute you all, guys, so we have enough, we don't get any interruptions. Please feel free to put all your questions in the Q&A, and we'll get to those later on after Nicolas's presentation. You can watch us on YouTube as well, and we're just going to have a great time. We want you to really enjoy this next presentation from Nicolas. So we've done some intros. Nicolas is going to take over and give us his amazing presentation, and then I said we've got plenty of time for questions, and we should be with you for 2 hours. So, Nicolas, without further ado, I think over to you, please.
All right, I'm going to share my screen now. Here we are. Is it all good?
I think we're good.
I can see it.
Yeah. I will close my camera just because I don't really have the best internet right now. So last week we talked about the health benefits of the olive oil and what it does for you. And I strongly recommend everyone here tonight, if you haven't seen it, go and have a look. It's on YouTube. I was not alone. I was with Tassos Kyriakidis, who's a professor from Yale School of Public Health, and is a specialist in health benefits of polyphenols, and he explained the long list of health benefits, science-backed, so many studies to back it up, an official health claim as well, etc., etc. But today, I wanted to share the story on how we achieved that and how we didn't even try to achieve that. It was a happy surprise. So it all started 13 years ago when I first came to Cyprus. Um, I came first, invited by a Greek Cypriot person who had a small farm with about 700 trees on, on land that was overseeing his village, which is in occupied area in the north side. And we started doing some work on the olive trees. They had many issues with water there, like pretty much everyone now in Cyprus. It's getting dry and drier every year. At the moment, as we speak, we're in emergency for drought. It's been several years. We have no waters left on the reservoir. They're starting cutting even town water in Nicosia for a short time. They brought in emergency some desalination plan from the United Arab Emirates for the tourists. We don't even know if we're going to have enough water for the tourists this summer. So this is how bad the situation is. So this Greek Cypriot man told me I have some land in a buffer zone, which is a strip of land between the north and the south Cyprus. So the north has been occupied by Turkey since 1974, and the south is an independent republic. So in the middle, you have a buffer zone, which is under UN administration. So at the time, they just finished removing the mines on the area. And when I looked at the piece of land, I was like, oh my God. It was 40 hectares. All right. The good news is that no one touched it since 74. Right. So it was not too disturbed. The bad news is that it was nothing there. It was basically a desert. It's in a rain shadow in a specific area of Cyprus behind the Bay of Morphu, between the mountains and the bay. And the rain doesn't stop here. So we have actually the driest place in Cyprus with the lowest rainfall. So there was nothing there, which is good when you start, because when you want to implement a design, it's always nice to start with a blank canvas. Although we did have a canvas, which was the topography and the type of land we had here. So we looked at where to start. And when we start in permaculture, we always start with water. It's always the first element that we design and we implement in design. So I looked at the entire topography. We did a complete survey of the topography, and I designed many different water harvesting structure, but main one, which was a dam, fed with rainwater in order to cover our irrigation needs in the middle of the summer when all the trees will be fully grown. So we had a dam of capacity of 17,000 cubic meters of water. And so it was carefully placed in one of the main erosion gully. And then we started designing everything around to make sure we had the maximum amount of water going into that dam. So all access road, all infrastructure, buildings, compacted surface, etc. The good news in being a desert is that your soil it's very, very rocky, has a high runoff coefficient. That means the rain runs off fast and a lot, not many of that rain infiltrate in the soil. So you have a fast runoff so that if you want to capture that water, you have access to a lot of it. And our catchment surface area beyond the ground was really big with rocky hills and stuff. So we all designed for most of that water to go into that dam. And on the first year before planting, we actually filled it up, which was amazing, really, really quickly. So before that pond, we created a silt pond. So the water goes there first before it overflows into the main dam. And that silt pond was made of concrete and was designed to be twice the size of the bucket of my tractor and with a slope, so I could easily come and collect that silt. So we were collecting every year a large amount of silt, of topsoil, precious from all the neighbors around. Yeah, so that's how we collected the first water. So then we started planting, and then you have some pictures here. So that's a cut we did in our soil. So that's what we work with, which is an upper pillow lava, very specific to Cyprus and this side of the Troodos mountain range. So we're not in the mountain range, we're just below it with an altitude about 200 meters above sea level. But as you can see on that cut, less than 5 millimeter topsoil and then just rock, nothing else. So we planted with a pneumatic drill into that rock. So we planted 7,000 trees, then we planted hundreds of hawthorn, which are local varieties that produce little fruits. Prickly pears all around it, and in many sections, mostly the firebreak. Some pomegranates as well, and very importantly, lots of aromatic herbs and native herbs, as well as all sorts of wild species of the Medicago family, but all native from Cyprus. And we got very lucky. The Cyprus seed bank gave us a lot of seeds to play with. So we did a lot of tries with different ground covers, mostly native to Cyprus, and very, very diverse. Nothing fancy, no commercial seeds there. Many of the seeds we were actually collecting in the wild and replanting them. And on the picture on the right here, you see a yellow flower. That's the Drittihia viscosa, which you find all around the Mediterranean basin. It's a very, very powerful smelling plant, and it's also the host of a parasitic wasp, which is one of the main predator of the olive fly, which is the main pest of the olives. So by creating many different habitats, local small habitats, we increased the insect biodiversity drastically. Also from day one, we decided to go pesticide free, organic or whatever, no pesticide whatsoever, in order to protect as much as insect biodiversity as we could, so we could achieve eventually the balance in the ecosystem. So the goal was biodiversity, drought, tolerance, and to cut inputs. So there's one thing we didn't have a shortage of, was rocks. Lot of rocks. So in order for us to be able to manage the ground cover in the first time, and then eventually starting implementing livestock, we needed to remove lots of those stones from the fields. So we could cut the ground cover if we needed, and then we could graze it when the tree would be ready. So we did that by hand, hours and hours in the sun, collecting those stones, and we we used them. We didn't just discard it as piles. We used them to create a network of check dams and water features that actually slow and spread and infiltrate rainwater. And those check dams are amazingly effective. And you can see on the top right picture, that's after rain, and the water stays and will infiltrate slowly in the landscape. And in a climate like ours, over the last 20 years, the rainfall has decreased for sure, but most importantly, the pattern of the rainfall has changed. Cyprus used to have, and I'm saying Cyprus, but that's mostly all the Middle East. We can say the same thing. We used to have pretty regular winter rains, nothing dramatic. And now we have a little bit less water, but most importantly, far less rain events. When it rains, it doesn't rain, it pours. And that water doesn't have time to infiltrate, and it creates all sorts of erosion issues. So it's a challenge, but it's a problem, but it's also a solution. So if you can manage to slow down, to spread, and to infiltrate that water, and if you create the right biology on top of that to make sure that water stays in the soil, then you have an amazing impact, and that impact shows really quickly because we have very long growing seasons. So if you have humidity, if you have water in your system, then the effects are very dramatic and very quick. And then we had some side effects of those stones. We noticed that the birds in the morning love to sit on them, and when they wake up, they warm up on the stones and they poo. And many plants in that environment have seeds that are designed to go through the digestive system of a bird. So they are designed to be eaten, and then they grow with the nutrient of the bird poo and they grow faster. And on the bottom left picture, you will see a wild asparagus growing, and that's a very expensive wild food. And we're starting seeing them popping up all over the place. Everywhere we had stones, wild asparagus started growing in it, and that allowed for secondary crop without any planting or any care, just the birds doing the work. So even with a resource that seems like a problem, like stones everywhere, we managed to make the most of it and to have amazing effects with those stones. So then we starting experimenting. All the trees were planted in a section of 100 with their own irrigation tap. So we could check pretty much everything. We did many different tests and combination of tests, different irrigation schedule, more water in a short time or less water in a longer time, etc. We did all sorts of inoculation with different mycorrhizal, some that are well known, some that we found in the wild. We tried a little different types of compost and some compost tea. And when we started, the local farmers thought we were crazy, right, to start planting olives in that place. And we were kind of the joke in the village. And then I started making compost, huge amount, but I didn't do it quite at the farm. I did it on the main road just before the buffer zone. And we do compost in winter because, we need green material and we don't have any in the summer. So we were doing this in the winter, and the compost, gets really hot, and then you see all the steam and coming out of it. And we did that. So we did it in a place so everyone who would drive by will see it. And then in the second year, they start stealing the compost, which was a great achievement for us. Because we thought, okay, now they must trust in the thing. And the compost was used mostly for inoculations. I do not use compost as fertilizing for the olive tree. because olive trees, if they are too well fed, if I can say this like that, if there's too much nitrogen, they will be very happy. They will grow and do a lot of leaves, but no fruit. So it's finding the right balance of nitrogen. It's a bit tricky. And compost will release nitrogen over several years. So if you keep adding compost, you're not quite sure where your nitrogen levels are. So it's a bit tricky to use compost as a fertilizer. So to start with, to start at the beginning, because we didn't have animals in the system, we basically used chicken manure, but in pellet form. As a main source of fertilizer. So that was for the few first years. Then we had quite a good nitrogen intake from ground covers, and then animals started grazing in the different farms. Anyway, I'll explain this in a bit. So we did a lot of experimentations with all sorts of combinations of microbes and most importantly mycorrhizal fungi. So everything that we did was to grow the soil. We didn't really focus on the trees. And until today, for every system that I design or I look after, I don't really look at trees. I look at soil. And really everything starts in the soil. It's a very complex ecosystem. It's the most complex ecosystem on the planet. It's an ecosystem which is not quite well understood. And it's not one ecosystem, obviously. There's millions of different types of ecosystem according to where you are in the world. And you might even find very different ecosystem within a farm, according to the conditions, the plants that are growing on top, and the geology behind. So it's very, very complex. We always say that a teaspoon holds billions of microbes, more than human on the planet. So in these microbes, you have bacteria, fungi, protozoa, nematodes, all have a different role. And within these big families, you have many, many, many millions of different varieties of those. I'm not going too much into the details of what exactly do these microbes work in the soil, but I think you guys doing a webinar very soon on the 10th, right? July.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll talk about that more later, Nicolas.
Okay. But it's a matter of understanding the principles, and the principles are that the more diverse an ecosystem is, and that works for ecosystem above ground, but below ground is also very important. The more diverse it is, the more stable it is. So we're looking at numbers. We don't know exactly, to be honest, what every single one of those microbes do. And then when they start collaborating with each other and stuff. So we work mostly on principles. We know some of it, thanks to pioneers like Dr. Elaine Ingham, Jones in Australia, Bourguignon in France. We start understanding a little bit better in soil biology, but it's a really a new type of science. And the first real big scale study to create a nomenclature, so basically giving these guys names, starting in 2012 only, and that's using DNA sequencing. So we can just, put them in family trees and give them names. But the actual function and how they behave and their behavior change according to different conditions, there's still a lot to explore, which is very exciting. It's an amazing science to get into. And the results, when you get it right, are incredible, and they show really quickly. So these organisms, they regulate water retention, which is critical where we are in the world. We want to increase the soil organic matter in order to increase the water retention. That's very, very critical, and that makes a really big difference. Nutrient cycling. So in our case, also very important because we have those soils full of minerals, but those minerals are in a chemical form which is not accessible by the trees or the plants. So those microbes will mine those minerals and turn them into a chemical form that can be absorbed by the plants, and they can actually carry those nutrients around and bring it to the plant. So you open the door of the soil supermarket, you change the capacity of the plant to access the entire amount of nutrient and micronutrient in the soil. And that's the soil microbes that do that for you. So yeah, we did a lot of compost, a lot of inoculations. We grow our own mushrooms and mycorrhizal mushrooms. And now we have a very, very beautiful living network with trees that are resilient, that requires 5 times less water than the requirement, not the requirement, the advice from the agriculture ministry here in Cyprus. So it's very important to understand that all of this is a synergy, right? So olive trees, when they're young, they start doing a taproot, a deep taproot. Then when they grow older, the taproot is not really relevant anymore. So the taproot is the root that will go straight down and looking for water mostly. And then there's all the rest of the network, the lateral network, so the roots that are growing on the side. So the mycorrhizal fungi is a fungi that lives in symbiotic relationship with the tree. So when they meet for the first time, the fungi will knock on the door of the root system, on the root cells, and whisper to the root with a chemical. And the tree will recognize it as a friend, and in some cases will even open the cell doors in order for the fungi to enter the cell. And that symbiotic relationship is done inside the root. Some other mycorrhizal will be just on the surface of the root, but they work the same way. And when they connect like this, they help the tree to bring water. So they increase the root system of the tree. We're talking the root system of an olive tree the lateral root will barely go further than the canopy, right? Sometimes a bit more, but it stays under the canopy. But with mycorrhizal, sorry, it extends far in the tens and tens of meters, and then they connect to each other as well. So the tree will give some carbohydrates through photosynthesis. So the tree will take carbon from the atmosphere and the C from CO2. And with that carbon, some of it will be used to grow new leaves, new branches and stuff. But most of it will actually be used to create carbohydrates, some exudate, to feed all those microbes, and the mycorrhizal being one of them. So it's a symbiotic relationship, and mycorrhizal can connect with other mycorrhizal from other trees. And then that's when the beauty happens. The tree can start exchanging information. And we see that a lot in forest. In olive groves, it's not really studied. We don't really know what they exchange. But in forest, it's more studied. And we know that, for example, some trees can share nutrient and water to younger trees. So you have mother trees feeding baby trees using the fungal network. We know also that they carry information regarding pests, and in forests of conifers, you have pests attacking some trees hundreds of kilometers from other trees, and then the other trees starting making the phytochemical to protect from that pest. So the trees that were attacked send a message through the fungal network to trees that were hundreds of kilometers away, telling them, okay, this pest is coming, better get ready, and it's kind of information they can share. To be honest, in the olive grove, we don't really know what they're sharing, but we like that they are actually talking. So in rhizosphere, so that's the ecosystem around the roots. You have all sorts of bacteria, proteobacteria. So that's a major phylum family. So those guys, they can solubilize. They make liquid version of phosphate. They can be biocontrol agent. They help also with nutrient acquisition, and they help also, most importantly, with pathogen resistance. So they are helping trees to overcome diseases. And then you have actinobacteria. Those are known to produce antibiotics and enzymes, and those guys, they can really go and degrade complex organic matter, like the first things that come down, and that increase the mineral availability for the tree. Then you have Eschimota fungi. This one live within the root system, and they can trigger defense response in the host plant, so increase phytochemicals like polyphenols that we're going to be talking about today. So what we did is some co-inoculation with AMF. So AMF is mycorrhizal fungi. So we call it arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi. And PGPR, that's a group of, it stands for plant growth promoting rhizobacteria. So it's a bunch of bacteria that are known to stimulate plant growth by producing hormones and also making minerals available for the plant, and then they can compete with pathogens. So pathogens don't have the chance to come up. So when you have all this strong biodiversity, you can suppress pathogen like verticillium. And I don't know if there's any olive grower listener listening to us tonight, but we have found ways to keep verticillium at bay, which is a major issue for olive trees. And we can maybe in the Q&A speak about Xylella, which is another bacteria that is destroying olive trees in south of Italy, and what we learned from that. What we looked as well is the microbiomes of wild olives, because I was astounded by the capacity of some wild olives that were growing a bit further from the farm without any kind of irrigation, without any kind of care, and they were kind of thriving. So I looked at their microbiome, looked at the literature as well, and I start taking some of that microbiome and bringing it to the grove. So all these underground relationships, they are not optional. They are fundamental to olive tree health. And when you don't work with soil biology, when you work with chemical fertilizer, for example, the famous NP and K that come in a salt form, what happens is that you dilute that in water because they're basically salt, and the tree has no chance but to drink it. So it's basically like if you were fed with an IV with just protein, fat, and sugar. You probably survive, but then your immune system and your capacity of resisting pathogens will be really low. So what we do with soil biology is exactly the opposite. We are giving proper nutrition to the tree and proper medications, both as preventive and also as curative when the time when needed. So I like this word, holobiotes. So it's a bit like us, right? The olive tree is not alone, but this is true for every single plant, right? They are all a super organism of a plant and microbes. Before I was talking about the way plants take carbon out of the atmosphere to create those exudate, those little carbohydrates. they can make special recipes of those sugars in order to bring special microbes according to its needs. So if a plant is in deficiency of iron, for example, it can make a special exudate that will bring the microbe that bring iron. And it's the same when if the plant has some kind of pathogen or some kind of issue, it can make some special exudate to bring the bacteria that will help it to overcome those. All those microbes, they stimulate the polyphenol synthesis as part of a defense and adaptation system. The polyphenol, to sum it really very simply, it's kind of the immune system of the plant. It protects it from stress, but it protects it also from pests. Some of those polyphenols are very, very bitter, so it makes the olive not tasty for pests. So when you increase that microbiome, you increase the nutrition of the tree, and then you increase the nutritional value of the fruit and the plant. And this is true for every single plant. So we try different stuff, different mixes. We even try to plant some trees in between nitrogen fixing trees. We're looking at growing nitrogen fast to minimize inputs. The trees were a failure. I mean, they didn't survive, even hardy guys. They didn't make it, and I didn't have enough water to keep them alive. But eventually, we found kind of the right recipe, which is really, really not that difficult. So it's a mix of mycorrhizal, and maybe I'll talk more about this in the Q&A if we want to go into specific details on which microbes we used. But as soon as we planted, thank God our water reservoir was full. We had 12 months with no rain. So it was hard. And we have very little water to spare. And we really didn't want to give them too much water as well, because we wanted to train those trees into making those lateral roots and not rely on irrigation. The goal is to get ready to close the tap when the time comes and when we won't have water, which will happen eventually. So we lost about 5% of the trees during the first year. Some of them were just too stressed. Some of them were eaten by wildlife, but we did okay. It was a very good success rate. And at that point, yeah, it was just not an olive project. It was ecosystem engineering, because we could see dramatic impacts from the small changes we were making. And now the impacts are even stronger, but because now we also have shades from the trees. So the ground cover is changing. It's an ever evolving ecosystem. And the very, very important thing to remember if you wanna get into working with farms or productive agroecosystem, is that there's no magic bullets. It's a combination of very, very small thing, and most importantly, of observation. You need to train your eye to recognize pattern, to look at every single small detail, and to listen to the feedback of the system, and then, do small changes there and then. When you do that, it's incredible how nature comes back and how fast it goes. Okay, in our case, because we have this long growing season, it grows really fast. And the biodiversity of insects, microbes, and then even bigger animals, foxes coming back, hares coming back, all sorts of birds, because we're in an important bird area with the migration routes, it started coming up. So it becomes a virtuous cycle where nutrient cycling accelerates, and then it gets faster and faster and better and better. It's very quite amazing to to see it happening in front of your eyes. So on the first year, we installed a very small mill, 200 kilos an hour. As far as olive mill goes, it's a very small thing. It's a one-piece equipment. The trees we planted, the first idea was to make table olives because there's a bit more money to be made in table olives than in olive oil, at least at the time. But it was so dry that our first olives were too small to be sold commercially. Everyone wanted, type A, type B, etc. We were quite small, so we decided to mill them. And I had no experience on the mill. I was trained on the phone, not even video call, with the Italian company. So I did it just the best I could, really. And we sent it for analysis. And at the time, to be honest, I didn't really thought more about polyphenol. I didn't really knew much about polyphenol in olive oil. I knew their role in plants, but I didn't know like you could find some in olive oil as well. And we got results. And before we got the result, we got a call from the professor that did the analysis at the university, saying, "What have you guys done?" And we got 200 milligrams, 2000 milligrams, sorry, of oleocanthal alone. That's one polyphenol. We might talk a bit more about it later, but altogether we had a 2.4 thousand milligrams of polyphenol, which was double the previous world record. So we were not trying to make high phenolic olive oil. It happened because the way we grew the trees, while we grew the soil, right? The trees grew themselves. Then I really got into milling, and it's a fascinating science, the milling. So when you take olives, they get crushed, and then they go into a chamber, what we call the malaxation chamber. When you have these big blades, doing a malaxation of the paste in order to separate the oil from the rest of the pulp. Right? Olive oil is basically fruit juice. To extract it properly, if it's extra virgin or virgin, you can only use mechanical means. Everything which is not extra virgin or virgin, if you see regular olive oil or olive oil, that means it's been extracted with solvent. But in our case, obviously, extra virgin. So during this malaxation process, there is an enzymatic activity. There's actually several enzymatic activity that happen. So it transforms some of the polyphenols that are in the fruit into other polyphenol that does not exist as is in the fruit. So specifically oleocanthal, oleacin. And those polyphenols, they are very, very potent. You can see and you can watch the last webinar we did on the health benefits. Oleocanthal is incredibly potent as an anti-inflammatory that works just like ibuprofen, but also as a neuroprotective for Alzheimer and neurodegenerative disease, etc., etc. So I started really got into it. Once again, I did a lot of experimentation, and that we hit the sweet spot into the process with the right oxidation, with the right temperature, with the right timing, with the right condition for this enzymatic activity. And then at the time we reached 4,900, it's not 23, it's 43 milligrams per liter. And that record still holds today. To be honest, an oil that is that strong is very difficult to drink. It really burns. It's really, really bitter. So now we're doing oils that are still very strong, but are a bit more easy on the people. So that allowed us to find this niche, right? And when I say for survival, it's because it really is the case. Olive oil is a commodity. The market is ruled by a quite small number of really big companies that are flooding supermarket shelves with sometimes market acceptable quality and sometimes quite low quality and often quite low quality. So out there you have millions of small producers that actually make the olive oil, and they have two choices. And what they do mostly is that they sell the oil to the mill where they are. So if you are in Greece, well, everywhere in the Mediterranean basin, you sell the oil to the mill if you are an olive grower, and then the mill will sell to those big companies. And those big companies, they do blends from different countries, from different years sometimes, and that's what you get in the supermarket. The other choice for a small producer is to go for quality and then to find its own niche market. But that's very tricky, and it's a very hard job to create a brand, to create brand awareness on the, you have millions of brands out there. How do you differentiate yourself with the big brands that are much cheaper than you, where everyone writes the same thing on the label? It's not a fair market for quality olive oil producers. So we created that niche, which we can assess the quality through chemical analysis. So our high phenolic olive oil is 30 times more polyphenol than regular extra virgin olive oil. So we can assess that quality, and we found that niche, and we started getting some consumer, and it was very slow start at the beginning. And then we got incredible feedback, and then from word to mouth, things started to grow. And yeah, for me, it all comes down to what I call the soil food web legacy. So 20 years ago, when I start getting into permaculture randomly by chance, basically knocking on the right door in the right place, not looking for that. I was taught the techniques and the knowledge of Dr. Elaine Ingham by the late Paul Taylor, which was one of her first students. And it really opened up my vision of the world below our feet, and I really got into it. And that was parallel to my permaculture training and then my experiment on it. So the health benefits of olive oil, once again, I'm going to be really short on that because we have a full webinar with actual professor from Yale School of Public Health that talks much better about this subject than me. But it's a very strong antioxidant. It's very strong anti-inflammatory, providing that you have oleocontal in it. Cardioprotective action, cholesterol, blood pressure, etc. Neuroprotective role, metabolic support, and there's a long list of benefits that are not mentioned there. So after that, we decided to go. Well, after my first project, I went away from olive oil for a little bit. I started dabbling in honey in the mountain and work on other type of enzymes, the one created by honey, by bees, spit basically. And then I started being dragged back into olive oil with work. And then we decided, okay, let's redo some high phenolic olive oil, but let's do it right all the way this time. Then we looked at all the issues with high phenolic olive oil. And the main issue that we had was consistency in potency. And that was very important for some of our customers that had issues. We have people with multiple sclerosis, and we have a lot of athletes too. And the doctors of those professional athletes, the doctors of the football players from England, were telling us, okay, it's very nice your bottles and stuff, but we need to make sure we give a precise dose every day so we can actually measure everything and stuff like that. Because those guys, they are measured every day, all day. So the problem that when you have olive oil in a bottle is that before you even open that bottle, after 6 months to 9 months, you lost about half the polyphenols already to degradation. due to temperature mostly. Even if the bottle is sealed and it's dark, you start losing polyphenol. And then when you open that bottle, then air gets in, and then the polyphenols drop really quickly. Those polyphenols are very, very sensitive. So we looked at doing monodose, so you don't have oxidation issue. And then when we looked at monodose, everything was plastic, aluminum, even glass. None of the packaging made sense for us because we didn't want it to, create more waste. We have a carbon negative olive grower with 16 kilos of carbon per liter. We didn't want it to create more, obviously plastic was not an option. So we found out these guys in the UK that were working with seaweed, that are working with seaweed. And we start using those seaweed-made pods that have the precise dose. And we are, to make sure you always have the polyphenol, we keep them cold, basically. And that starts actually at the harvest. We harvest everything by hand in September, with a month before the normal harvest. And because it's quite hot in September as well, we have a fridge truck, and the olives goes from the tree to the fridge. And then an hour or two later to the mill where everything is also cooled down. And then once the oil is made, it goes straight into the fridge. And then it's made into these pods, and then it's kept also in the fridge until we ship them monthly. So we have full control of the preservation of the oil. It doesn't sit on the shelf or a warehouse somewhere. We have full control. So people actually have the actual potency that we're mentioning in our analysis. The seaweed is really cool. It looks good, but it's also amazing material because growing seaweed actually brings oxygen in the oceans, reduce acidification, which is a major issue. This year we are living the biggest coral bleach event in history, and I think it's gonna get worse and worse, obviously. So growing a lot of seaweed, there's all sorts of seaweed we can grow for food as well, but for packaging is amazing because it does all this, it regenerates oceans, doesn't create any plastic, and then you can eat that thing, you can eat the pod, or you can just throw it in your compost. It's like a fruit peel. So it was really, we were very, very happy when we found that packaging. So regeneration is a path. We were not looking for breaking records. We're not trophy hunters. The goal was to really heal the land, and do an ecosystem restoration. And through soil first design, we created that that most potent olive oil in the world. So start with the living soil, and then nature will exceed your expectation. Work with nature, not against it. And thank you for your attention. Nick?
Thanks, Nicolas. Really appreciate that. Fantastic. Well, look, guys, we've got quite a few questions coming up, but I think we ought to give Nicolas a minute or two just to draw breath after that amazing presentation. That was good, wasn't it?
Sorry, it was muted. He was wonderful. Yes, his story is very, very inspiring. So happy to hear.
Yeah, yeah, so powerful. We love it when Nicolas gives up his time for the Soul Food Web. Guys, for those of you turned up a little bit late to the webinar, please put your questions for Nicolas in the Zoom Q&A, and we'll get to as many of those as we can in the time we have. I'm just going to push the slide forward. Can you see that? Have I got that set up correctly? Fantastic. So from healthy soil to healthy you, this is your opportunity potentially to discover how regenerative soil creates 30 times polyphenol oil and how you transforms your health. I don't know about you, but I'm in. I've already ordered mine. I ordered mine 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I can't wait to receive that first batch. So join the health revolution that heals you and the planet. So there is a discount code which we'll give you later for those of you who want to order some. So you're gonna help me out now, and I think if Nicolas is ready, are you ready, Nicolas? Have you managed to take a breather and have a drink?
Can I actually have 30 seconds more?
Absolutely, you can.
All right, I'll be back.
Absolutely. So something went wrong. Gosh, I don't know what I've done here now. Are we back? And my back is?
We're back. We're back. Just
We're
present.
back. Fantastic. So remember, guys, you can replay this webinar once Nicolas has finished, and we can watch it on YouTube. That goes along with the first webinar we had last week with Nicolas and Tassos talking about the health benefits of this high polyphenol olive oil. And Isidora and I had a great privilege in January this year to go out and see Nicolas with a load of students, didn't we, Is?
Yes, it was beautiful. It was not the same project that he was mentioning here, but it was definitely really interesting the way I love how Nicolas is always trying. He talks about ecosystems all the time, right? And he was using so many tools just to create that entire system to produce. It was citrus trees and olive trees as well.
And the citrus was lovely, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic. We managed to grab a few of those while Nicolas was talking, and his attention was elsewhere. But I hope he isn't listening to that. Nicolas,
I am.
are you ready?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Right, I will push the slide along, and we'll get into some Q&A. I think you've got quite a few questions to get through, Nicolas. So let's give it a go.
Right. Well, the first question we have is from YouTube, and he asks for any tips for what the soil of an olive tree actually likes or needs in order to maximize polyphenol content.
Well, it needs many things, and it needs a very healthy root microbiome. So, first of all, it's always a good idea to start with, what is the situation? So take some soil samples, do some chemicals analysis as well, but do some biology analysis. Take it under the microscope. Look at it, look what's happening, who's there, and then you can start fine-tuning it. It really depends. This is the main thing. It's like there's not a single recipe that will work everywhere. Every farm is different, and even on one farm you have different systems. So the recipe that I'm using here in Cyprus might not work for you in Spain, for example. What's important is to understand the principles. So yes, to maximize the polyphenol content, you need to have different varieties of mycorrhizal fungi, and you might have some species that I do not have here in Cyprus, right? You have the very famous ones that you can buy ready-made, and then you have the indigenous one, right? That work in consortia, in groups. So it's a good idea first to understand what you have, and then make sure you give the right conditions for all those to thrive. I hope it answers the question.
And Nicolas, can I just quickly add to that? How important, Nicolas, is the geology of the soil?
Well, the geology will have a massive impact on the flavor of the olive oil, not so much the polyphenol content,
Okay.
because I know people that have been reaching really good levels with very different geology, and on the farm, the first farm that I mentioned, the first one we planted, the geology was very diverse in this farm, and it's quite often the case in Cyprus. So one piece of the land actually had a very heavy red clay, while the rest was different forms of rocks, different types of rocks, upper pit of lava, some basalt, some different things.
Yeah.
And we had fairly homogeneous polyphenol levels all over the place. But the flavor will be different. And that's the beauty of olive oil or the beauty of wine, right? If you have quality, you have different terroirs. So even with the same cultivar, you have different things. If I grow a Koroneki tree in Crete or in Italy or even in France, I'll have three different oils.
Oh, have you
Yeah,
dropped out? Have you dropped out, Nicholas? Are you there?
yeah, I'm here.
Okay, good. And
But,
you were gonna, sorry, Nicholas, did you finish? Because I thought you dropped out.
no, I actually finished it.
Brilliant, thank you. And you were going to ask something. Sorry, I interrupted.
No, not at all. I just had a curiosity if, apart from microscope, is there any other way that you check your biology in soil?
Well, I do not have access to good labs here. Um, the local agriculture research institute doesn't do not work with soil biology, so it's a bit crazy, isn't it? So no, old school way, but you can see a lot of things in a microscope, right? And as I mentioned before, it's all about observation and feedback. So look first, do your things, look again, tweak, fine tune. It's a constant work. Yeah.
Brilliant. So the soil geology will only really affect the flavor. The polyphenols will kind of stay the same in terms of the levels. Yeah.
Yeah, it will affect many other different things. It will affect your strategy as well. For microbes, it will affect your watering strategy. It will
Exactly.
affect all of it, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you. Should we move on to the next one?
Let's go. You want me to read them?
Go.
Right. Well, that's a question from Anonymous. What advice would the panel give to someone starting out in regenerative agriculture? I just want to make a contribution to this amazing cause.
Nicholas, do you want to go with that one first? And I'm sure
All
Isidora
right.
and I can chip in.
Um, when I will give this advice for everyone that wants to start farming, right? Because if you want to start farming, it's a good idea to go regenerative. It's probably the only way that's gonna actually make you a successful farmer, and according to many different metrics, right? So obviously your plant health, your production, but also your finances, because what we look at is always diminishing inputs, right? Cutting down on all the products. Agronomists, classical agronomists will come and they will have a product for everything, right? And here in Cyprus, most of the agronomists, they work for the companies selling the product. So they have a solution for everything. There is a product for everything. That's going to cost you a lot. So if you want to start farming, work your way backwards as well, because it's the economics of it is what's going to make it work or crash. So work out what the product you want to do. How much added value can you add to that product? How much value can you add to that product? How can you transform it? The more you transform it, the more value you will add to it. And then start small. Don't take more than you can chew. Start what you can manage because it's very overwhelming. So start small and then grow slowly, grow organically, grow bigger as you get more confident, and get good foundational knowledge. It's very important to have the basics, and you can only kind of get the basics because the rest you're going to learn on the terrain. and you're going to make mistakes, but that's how you're going to learn. But the basics are very important. The foundation of the knowledge is important. Get to know your soil food web. Get to know how irrigation works if you're in a place that requires irrigation. It's not that simple. There's some foundational knowledge that is needed. Yeah, but start small.
Yeah. And Isidora, what about general principles or general advice on regenerative agriculture?
Yeah, I think don't get stuck in paralysis by analysis. There's so much information out there. You don't have to know everything. You just need to surround yourself with the right people and get support. Find your support network. I think this is good. You're not going to know everything about water retention. You're not going to know everything about botanics and plants, but you may work with people that think like, and then, get the job done. So yeah, and stay away from dogmas, as Nicolas also said. This is about observation. This is about having fun and being respectful to our resources and to everything around us. So I don't know. This is very general kind of advice. What about you?
Absolutely. Well, look, farming all my life, and we've just moved to this last 5, 6 years. We've moved to this regenerative practices and embraced Dr. Elaine and the school and what we're being taught. We really got into it on a large scale, and we went cold turkey with everything. Would I advise people to do that? Again, no, absolutely not. I would do it gently. But if you're going into an organic farm and you're thinking about which direction to choose, I would stick to organic principles, using regenerative principles as well, and not go back to the dark side. And if you're already in the dark side, I would gently come into the light and have a lot more fun. I've had more fun in the last 4 or 5 years in agriculture than I've had in 35 using conventional agriculture. So that's my bit of advice for large scale ag. So, without further ado, let's get to the next question, please.
Right. This is for you, Nicolas. What have been the biggest challenges you have faced in transitioning your olive groves to a regenerative approach? From Luke.
Well, we transition other olive groves. That's what we do now, right? We work with farmers. We train them. First of all, we convince them, and the way we convince them is by telling them that we're going to purchase the olives at twice the market value. So that's a good way of convincing farmers. I always come back to the economics of it, because at the end of the day, that what matters for most farmers, and it's fair enough, they have to feed their families. So they have incentive. So that's the thing. Then the challenges is how do I put that? Is beliefs that people take for certain and they are not true. Like things on olives and olive trees, and you can't do it this way, you have to do it this way. The pruning is a big one. Everyone has an opinion on pruning. Uh, Everyone knows that they have the ultimate truth, and to show that it can be done differently. Uh, and pruning techniques should not be the same in north of Italy or in Cyprus. It's not the same weather. Yeah, and all those experts out there that, especially in Greek culture, but I think it's Mediterranean culture, you have these older experts that are telling you the way it is and the way it should be. And when I started in olives, I didn't know much about olives, and I had a lot of information, wrong information that was given to me by all those experts. So, sometimes not listening is a good way. But the biggest challenges was that, like, convincing the farmers to transition. So we do that with money, and then they see the benefits, especially when the inputs start to drop. One of the farms here in Cyprus used to have thousands of inputs. Now, this year, they're down to 400 euros per year
Mm.
worth of inputs, right? And that's 40 hectares. That's the farm you visited, guys.
Right. Okay.
Um, yeah, so the biggest challenge is to not, well, it's several of them. Not listen to the experts, trust your guts, and yeah, just and show examples. Once you have the examples running, and then you have a bit of results under your belt, they start listening a bit more.
Hey, Nicholas, I think that is absolutely great advice. And that's what I tell young people coming into agriculture as well. So I'd absolutely agree with that. What about you, Is?
Yeah, I was just laughing because the thing with pruning is real. I think the prunes here, everyone has their opinion and everyone, and it's this, it doesn't have to be a right or wrong. It's a contextual thing. It's many, there's many things that, so I actually I did some olive oil a few years back, and it was probably because of your stories, Nicolas, and because of this lovely man that I found here in Catalonia, Spain, Tomas Yop, that he teaches pruning in the most beautiful way possible. And yeah, so that is real. And I forgot about the question. Sorry, I was just reminiscing those old moments in my life. Next
Brilliant.
question.
Next question. Let's do it.
Okay, so what's the most rewarding thing about the work you do? And can you make good living in this industry, or is it impossible without chemicals?
Nicholas.
And the most rewarding is the change, the general increase of life at all levels. The one you see, walking in the grove early in the morning and have a barn owl just, flying on top of you in the row. That happened to me a few months back. That was an amazing experience. So see the life, and when you used to a piece of land, see it getting better and flourishing, seeing the same fox every morning. Um, Basically life, yeah. And can you make a good living? Well, we're trying. Um, we are making an okay living. We're not we're not millionaires. Our margins are tight because we do everything the best way possible, which is very expensive to do. But yeah, it's possible, and you know, it is very possible without chemicals. I think regenerative agriculture is the fastest growing method of agriculture today. There's amazing examples with ranchers and big scales in the US doing amazing stuff, and we're talking conventional farmers that did transition, like hardcore traditional farmers, and they do the transition because it works for them and it creates a better living. Is any farmer making a good living in the world with chemicals? I don't know. I don't know many. The guy selling the chemicals, yeah. The middleman selling the things, yes. The supermarkets, yes. The farmers, no
No.
one's making a good living. Right? And on top of that, they're poisoning themselves and the rest of us. So yeah, farming communities are pretty much they're very similar all over the world. I've been very lucky to work with many different farming communities in very different cultures. But there is a very strong foundation of the same way of thinking. And farmers are good people uh, generally. And if they use chemicals or bad practices because they were not show the other way. Once you show how it works, then transition it's easy.
Yeah, and for me, as this is a panel question, for me, Nicholas and Isidora, I found that we are as profitable now as we were when we were conventional farming on this same piece of land. In our transition, we've we've moved away from any reliance on uh, inputs before going organic, and we found quite a quick change once the soil started to get over all those toxins we were applying to it. And now we've kind of come out the other side and using the principles of the soil food web, we are seeing some massive changes in our not only in our soils, but as Nicolas said, the food you're growing, and also the biodiversity of the farm in around us with massively improved invertebrate numbers, which will have an impact on bird numbers. And so it goes on. So for us, um, it's been a no-brainer, and I would absolutely endorse what Nicolas said. No one in agriculture at the moment is making money. Um, it's about the amount of risk you're prepared to take. And I think those people who are still conventionally farming, that is a massive risk. Certainly in the UK, with the weather patterns we are seeing, we're seeing a lot more periods of longer periods of rain and dry weather, and we're in a dry weather period at the moment, and it's not good for us. But for me, not investing as much money into that crop, if we do get a disaster, we've invested a lot less. So it's that's from the UK side of it. What about you, Is?
There's not much I can say, is there? You guys just covered it all. I mean, you don't know what a drought is, though. I do have to tell you
No,
that.
no, no. I can see you there fanning yourself. It must be hot.
But no, it is true. Um, it's yeah, it's all about it just brings so much more happiness, I suppose. I mean, I didn't make any money from my olive oil, but I was just so happy. I wasn't looking for, but you definitely can. You definitely can. I know a lot of fruit growers in my area, and others that just decided to switch, right? And they're so much more happier because they have less costs and they see the benefits and they feel the benefits and they enjoy their work a lot more. So yes, it's possible. It is possible.
And I just want to add one quick thing on that is most of the value in food is made after the farmer, right? It's all that distribution network, all those middlemen. So that's why you have a farmer saying selling a salad for €1, and then 30 kilometers later in the next supermarket is sold for €3. So the margins are not made by the farmers. So if we really want to change that food system, which is broken, which is wasteful, and it's breaking farmers' lives, we need to break that chain and go direct to the producers. And here well, I'm in France now. So here in France, there's a lot of CSA system, community supported agriculture, where people buy directly to farmers. They have a shop in my village now, which is run by the farmers. So there's no middleman. All the value goes directly back to the farmers. So that a way to increase profit for the farmer is to cut all the distribution. And with Oleaphen, we decided to go direct to consumer. No more distributions, no more margins taking there and there for just logistics.
Yeah, if I may note on this, I'm seeing a lot of this here too, Nicolas, in Spain. People are just, it's easier in a sense because you can educate the consumer because they need to understand too. A lot of people don't know the difference. They don't value. They just go to a place and they see prices and or looks, right? Because that one looks better, that one is cheaper. And so cutting that middleman, you have the chance to actually have an interaction with the person who's consuming, get direct feedback and make the necessary changes, if there is a need for change. So I see a lot of this happening too in Spain.
Great. Right, Is I'll grab this next one. Give you a break. How many years? This is actually quite convenient. This question's come in when it has, guys. How many years did it take for you to be able to observe significant results in your soil first approach? wondering as we have old established olive groves from Christina.
Yeah, the result, you see them very quickly in a matter of seasons. You see first the ground cover, improving and stuff. And one of the growth that we took care of had an olive tree on it, which was 900 years old. So we worked with old, degraded, established olive grove, right? Most of the trees there were between 100 to 300, all the way to 900. And it was found conventionally with tilling around the olive trees, which is common practice. Every year it was tilled. It was irrigated using an old technique with canal and flood. So it was flood irrigation there. And by doing changes, we've seen it on the first few years. Obviously, stopping tilling, you see the ground cover coming back. But then we see those trees that were not producing starting to produce. And most importantly, when you do everything right, they produce every year, which is a trick in olive production, because the olive trees by nature is biennial bearing. So that means it will bear olives, once every 2 years. And we do everything we can to break that cycle and have production every year. That's what we did in the old groves. So in a matter of 1 season, 2 seasons, you see a very drastic change, and then it's exponential. That's the beauty of it. It gets really fast, really quick. Once the water has a chance to stay there,
Yeah.
then it's very impressive.
Yeah, yeah. And have you seen a similar thing, Is?
Yeah, definitely, for sure. I had a quick follow-up question just out of curiosity. I know the genetic influences and many other things, but how much yield are you getting per, I don't know, you say hectare tree? I don't know how you guys calculate it over there.
It's not hectare tree because there's a lot of different growths with a lot of different densities, right? So most of the olive trees that are grown conventionally by big companies, they are grown in high density farming, which basically rows of olive trees planted every 30 centimeters. It looks like a row, like a vineyard a little bit, with a big machine coming on top, harvesting, pruning, everything is mechanized. Here, we have groves that are very ancient. We have groves that are newly planted. So we have density of trees, sometimes 6 by 6 meters apart, sometimes 5 by 6. It's all sorts of different things. So the kilos per tree is very tricky because we have trees that are 2 years old and trees that are 900 years old, right? The tree that is 900 years old did almost 300 kilos last year, which is quite a lot. But typically in olive production, we say an olive tree is full maturity around 8 years old, and we're talking about 30 kilos per tree, 30, 40 kilos per tree.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anything else is on that one?
No, how many years? I don't, yeah, I guess some people try to how would we use this, what word am I looking for? They try to get older olive groves and try to recuperate them. Some feel it's very time consuming and they just rip everything off and start again because they're looking for that production. So yeah, but that's a very business mind kind of thing. But I agree pretty much with everything Nicolas said before.
And certainly for me, as I kind of alluded to the last question, after like a couple of years, and we kept on following the soil food web approach. We saw very quickly after 2 years, we saw the soil in the change in our soils, whether that be water holding capacity, whether it be these large increase in invertebrates, and we were seeing healthier plants. That were fighting off more diseases. So yeah, it kind of happens relatively quite quickly if you have the patience and you have the belief in the system. So
But when
great.
you know which keys to press, right? Which you know
Yeah.
which buttons you have to squeeze to get this, and then it goes quite fast. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it absolutely does. Okay, let's get to the next question, please.
Okay, it comes from Anthony. I'm sorry about my fanning. It is quite hot in here. Or am I just old? I don't know. Is it because? I don't know. What's the evidence that this olive oil is more effective at combating heart disease than regular olive oil?
Well, there's plenty of evidence, especially when it comes to cardiovascular health. We have an official EU health claim regarding blood lipid oxidation, and the threshold is 250 milligrams of polyphenol per liter. We are 6 to 7 times more than that. So you need to consume 6 or 7 times less olive oil to do that. Once again, if you go to PubMed right now, the website PubMed, which is the National Library Medicine, you just type olive polyphenol and then you have 2,000 results. There's a lot of evidence. Once again, Tassos was explaining it much better. Yeah, he's a, how do you say, professor at Yale, and he will
Yeah.
explain it very well. Every year we do a symposium with Yale for the Olive Institute. And every year we have new research coming up on the new health benefits. There's not a single food in the world that has so much science-backed clinical trial proven health benefits. Very impressive.
And Anthony, just if you didn't hear me earlier, Anthony, you can listen to Tassos's presentation that he gave last week with Nicolas on YouTube. Please tune in. I'd recommend you do that because there's a great presentation with all the health benefits that these high levels of polyphenol oils give to us by taking them regularly. So that would be as a really great watch. I recommend you do that. Great. So we've got half an hour. Let's try and squeeze as many questions as we can in the last 30 minutes. So over to you again for the next one.
Yes, I think the next one goes hand in hand. Ellison is asking if there are any topical anti-inflammatory properties to your oil. And I think we covered this in the last webinar too, right?
Yeah, we did. Luke was telling us his experience with it. Uh,
He was.
he's not here, so I can tell the full story, right? One day he got really angry and punched his printer and really hurt his hand. And he had some oil and he put it there, and the swelling went off. There is some science behind the topical application. Uh, we don't really advertise it because we don't really have clinical trial for it. We do have empirical evidence. Um, as I mentioned during the last webinar, we had some interest from cosmetic companies that actually did study that. And yeah, so there is apparently oleocanthal, which is the main anti-inflammatory, get absorbed by the skin, yes.
And uh, again, Alison, please just tune into last week's and you'll hear from Tassos about those health benefits for topical anti-inflammatory. Something that I'm certainly going to look into when the oil comes to me in November, hopefully, Nicholas. So, let's get to the next question, if we could, please.
All right. So when will you be
Yeah, we get that a lot.
I didn't honestly, Nicholas, I'm desperate to get your oil and I didn't put this question in, but I will be keen
Sure.
to listen to your answer.
All right. We harvest once a year, right? Quite small quantities. Last year, we sold out very, very quickly. So we decided to do pre-harvest subscription, right? In order for people to be able to save the spot. So the oil will be harvested in September. And then we have to ship it in a fridge to a pharmaceutical factory that will put this oil into those pods. We do not have the capacity of making those pods here. And then hopefully we'll get a right slot in the factory because it's quite complex, the system, so they have to change the entire line for us, put the nitrogen there, etc. So we say November. We hopefully will be able to ship before, but just to be safe and for no one to be expecting it too early, we say November. So hopefully, but before that, but realistically November.
And just a follow-up question from me, and I'm sure we covered this last week, Nicolas. Does once you've harvested and you've got the oil and you're putting it in your capsules, and obviously if we are purchasing this all over a year,
Yeah.
does the polyphenols degrade over time? So if I get my first batch in November, what about in May and June the following year? How does that work? Could you kind of explain it?
Yeah, and that's why we change our whole system. That was the purpose of that, right? Is to give the same potency that you have it 1 month after harvest or 12 months after harvest. And to do so, we keep the oil below 4 degrees Celsius. And when you do that, you lock the polyphenols in, and you can actually keep it for 3 years
Wow.
uh, without losing the polyphenol. We won't last 3 years, but yeah, that's the goal, is to keep the same potency. And when we work with the professional athletes, especially the Premier League players, uh, their nutritionists and their doctors want to make sure. That's why we started like this. Is mostly to cater to these guys first, and then we decided that we're gonna do everything right, every single detail, every single part of the process, to make sure that every single dose, whenever you take it, comes at the same potency.
Brilliant. And you'll be sending it to the UK for Premier League farmers. So I can't wait to get hold of mine, Nicholas. So
Yeah,
that is absolutely great. And should we be keeping it in the fridge when it comes? Because I've always had discussions with my wife about when we buy expensive olive oils, extra
yeah.
virgin, should we keep them in the oil? Because they seem to go very, very cloudy if you do that. And I don't know whether I'm harming it by putting it in the fridge.
You're not. It's just going to be very tricky because it's going to solidify. So when you want to pour it, it's going to be tricky.
Yeah.
If you have extra virgin olive oil for your cooking, and you want to keep it as long as possible without it freezing, you can put it around 14 degrees Celsius. So if you have a wine cellar, it's a good spot. But I will recommend you drink it as fast as you can. Really, that's the best way to keep it, to drink your extra virgin olive oil. Put it on everything as you should. Regarding the pods, we're shipping them monthly. So even if you don't keep them in the fridge, by the time you finish your last dose, there won't be a difference there. You won't have time to degrade significantly. So you can keep them in the fridge, yeah.
Yep.
They will be sent to you from the fridge by courier. So you can keep them in the fridge. They will be solid in the pod. So you can either drop that in your blender if you do smoothie, or you wait 5 minutes for it to come back to liquid, and then you shot it.
Fantastic. Can't wait. Really cannot wait for this. I think we've got our next question is a bit of a recap. So if you could read that one out, that'd be great.
Yes, Chris Nelson is asking, please explain how you balanced irrigation to nurture these trees, but also build drought resilience, and how you are transitioning to relying on that resilience.
Yeah, irrigation is it's very, 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 very important part. Obviously, without water, none of the rest will work. And it's It's very tricky. First of all, the mechanics of it. So when I was talking about foundational knowledge, it's good to learn how to put together an irrigation system so it's efficient. You don't have losses, and you have consistency in pressure and flow. So when you water trees that are on a slope, you want every single tree to get the same amount, right? So all of this, you need to learn it first. And then what we do is we do what we call deficit irrigation. So olive trees like water in the winter. That's when they get most of their water. And also very importantly, in early spring before the flowering. In order for them to do a good flowering, therefore a good fruiting afterwards, they need to have a good amount of water. So the trick there is to obviously record any rainfall and evaporation that you have, and then do deficit irrigation. So water them. It sounds counterintuitive, but water them in the winter, even if the ground cover looks green, and you might not notice any water stress on the trees. It's important to give them water at this moment, all the way until the fruits are set. Right? After that, it's just a matter of keeping them alive, really. So in the first few years, when you plant them, if you start with young trees, it's just keeping them alive. So you give them water when you see that they can't take it anymore, but you let them fight their battle for drought. You let them turn the leaves upside down, so the grove looks silver. So that's a strategy that they have to reduce transpiration, and then you keep them alive. But in winter, you keep them happy. And many olive farmers overwater in the summer, and that creates many issues as well with bad fungi coming in. Especially we have very alkaline soil. So alkaline soil, humidity, and heat equals fungi, and you might have a really good soil food web already. Bad fungi can maybe overtake that, and then you create issues. So yeah, we water them when they look like they don't need it, basically.
Yeah, and sometimes now we don't even have a choice because I see the rain patterns changing and we got a lot of rain, but we're not supposed to get it. So this is definitely important to work on that soil and system resilience, right? The whole thing, not just one thing. I
Yeah.
have a follow-up question for you, Nicolas, about the irrigation system that you prefer in your context, in your situation. Do you guys bury it? Do you put it superficial? What's your favorite approach from what?
Well, if I have the chance to start from scratch, I bury everything I can. Right. But then you have cost, equipment, and all that. It really depends on what you can afford as well, right? But I will bury everything I can.
Okay.
But you have to make sure you do it right because you won't see leaks in that case. When you're installed in an existing olive grove with really old trees and stuff, it's a bit tricky. So sometimes we run the lines on top of the trees, inside the trees, and then we run smaller lines that goes from that all the way down. We never use any type of sprayers. That creates a humid condition on the trunk level that we don't want, and 30% losses to evaporation. And then, as much mulch as you can, right? Ground cover, you build your own ground cover so that it can become mulch, basically. Yeah. So any pruning is shredded on spot and added to the soil. Um, yeah.
Great.
So the irrigation system really depends on where you are, what you have access to, what type of water you have as well, because sometimes drippers will block if you have very salty water or water with low line. So the irrigation is very important to get right and to study a little bit before you start. Yeah.
And just to clarify, Nicholas, if you are irrigating with drippers, you don't put anything in those lines as a treatment at all for your trees? No, just water.
You can if you want even inoculations, right? You can inoculate a lot of mycorrhizae through watering. That makes life much easier.
Yeah,
So yeah, if you can provide for what we call I don't know the English word for that, but you know, a system where you can add stuff into your
yeah,
irrigation water.
yeah,
Yeah, if you need it, it's great.
yeah. I've seen that work across the world, and it's a great success. So yeah, I just wanted your thoughts on that.
One
Fantastic.
question
Go for
about
it.
mycorrhizae, and I see not people are not mentioning it. I have a question about this. If because you mentioned that part of the system that you are creating, he talks about inoculation and compost is part of it. And then he talked about mycorrhizae and also plant growth promoting rhizobacteria.
Yeah.
So mycorrhizae that you used, did you purchase it? This is something that you created yourself. Did you have good experiences with that, I suppose?
All of the above. Really, the one that worked long term and are still established today are the one we grew from an indigenous consortia. So the one we found in existing wild olive trees. And there we also have some specific bacteria that actually there's one called Chryseobacterium oleale. So it works just with olive trees. It's a bacteria which is highly specialized for olive tree. So if you have a chance to find abundant wild olive tree, I will get some soil around the root system and start multiplying it. Yeah.
Great. Fantastic, guys. Okay, let's move on to the next question. I think this is another follow-up from uh, your earlier presentation. We had a few people coming in late to this, Nicholas. So if you can kind of refresh us, you showed us that incredible picture of that rock, and you were
Yeah.
planting trees. Could you just kind of go over that again in terms of how you are planting trees with such a small layer of soil?
Yeah. Well, I can start with what not to do because first farms, the first farm that was called in Cyprus, those 700 trees, were planted with a jackhammer, with a single hole the size of the pot of the olive trees that was planting, right? And the guy, the expert who helped them planting them 10 years before I arrived, told them, you need to put a lot of manure in that hole. And then, you put the tree on. And what happened is exactly that, a rock pot. So the tree had a lot of food, a lot of water as well, in a very small hole, and the roots were starting turning around, not spreading, not breaking that rock. There was water and food in that hole. And then 10 years after, you could almost pick up a tree with a single hand, right? And taking it out of the hole because the roots didn't do the work. So we didn't do that. We made slightly larger holes. We didn't put anything in the holes, right? Nothing at all. We just put the trees straight in there. We gave them a bit of water, a bit of compost, a bit of manure on the top, never in the hole. And that gave the chance for the roots to spread. So when you plant, you have first that taproot that goes down, that will break that rock, looking for a bit more water, and then the side roots. And when the tree grows, that taproot starts to lose its importance, and then it's really the side roots. And olive tree can go through pretty much everything. They have very, very, very strong root system. So in the case now, we didn't create it rock pots. We really we installed them very, very well.
Brilliant. And the next question I can't wait to ask you. And again, I haven't prompted someone to do this, Nicholas, but here we go. What type of olive meal do you use? Can you talk about the process?
No. I can tell you about the type of olive meal I used back then, but I have advanced a little bit more on that.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, just to make it quick, olive meal, there's two major type of olive meals. Well, there's three. One is the traditional one with a big stone that turns around and then it goes into basket and it's pressed either by an engine or a donkey or a camel, wherever you are. That's the traditional press, right? That's why we call pressing the olives. That's why we keep talking about cold press, right? Because we used to press them. Not many places in the world still use that. It's not the greatest to keep the olive oil fresh and non-oxidized. Then you have the three-phase olive meal. That's most the big meals. So all over the Med, you have those meals, those public meals where people bring their olives, and it's crushing the olives, malaxation, and then you have a centrifugal system. And this one gets three outputs. One is the water from the fruit, one is the pulp, and the third is the oil. And then the oil is getting washed with water that flushes whatever polyphenol there's left in order to clean the oil so you don't have sediments. That's the three-phase meal. And then you have a better option, which is a two-phase meal, which is very similar, but then you get only uh, waste and oil. Once again, most meals will wash the oil with water at the end. And most of meals will add water in the process in order to extract more oil out of the fruit. Obviously, we don't do any of that. We have a controlled extraction with a different process. Yeah, we don't use any water in the system. We filter the oil. We do not wash it with water. And the malaxation and the extraction, yeah, it's quite different. But this is trade secrets.
I thought that would be the case, Nicholas, but when I saw the question, I couldn't help but chuckle, and I thought I would put that little one in as well. So yeah, thank you very much indeed for that. Okay, is we've got probably 10 minutes left, so let's see what we can do. Go for the next one, is.
We have lots of questions, but we'll see what we can do.
Yeah.
So what is your vision for testing nutrient density and telling that story with customers?
Yeah, that's the key to sell the product, right? Because you do everything right, and if you do extra virgin olive oil and you do it well, you end up on the market next to competitors that write the exact same thing on the bottle, extra virgin olive oil, cold press, which doesn't mean anything. And then you're on the same shelf, you don't do the same process, you do everything right, and you can't differentiate, right? And the customer will have no idea why choose your oil next to the other. Your oil will be more expensive as well. So it's very important to go full transparency. And that's what we do. We publish every analysis report. We analyze more than polyphenols. There's other good stuff in the olive oil. There's vitamin E, there's squalene, there's oleic acids. We measure all that. We measure also for microplastics and pesticides, because unfortunately there's a lot of microplastics in olive oil. We measure all that, and all of it is accessible. And we do direct to consumers. So we speak to our consumers. We answer every question. We do full transparency. We really do analysis, along the year, not only once at harvest. So yeah, transparency and real people, and direct conversation with consumers. It's not easy, for sure.
And do you think the nutrient testing as labs get better at nutrient testing, do you reckon
Yeah,
things will move on quite quickly, Nicholas, in your opinion, or are we kind
yeah.
of plateaued?
Right now, it's quite expensive. It's a huge cost for us.
Yeah.
Also, there's a lot of different method of analysis, and there's some that are used purely for marketing. We
Right.
use accredited method of analysis by the IOC, International Olive Council, and by the European Food and Safety Agency because we have an official health claim. So we use accredited method of analysis, the gold standard. But in Greece, there's other methods of analysis which are not recognized, not accredited, and that tends to inflate numbers as well. So you see really, really big numbers. And good luck explaining that to the consumer, right? Uh, oh, my analysis is right, there is wrong. But bottom line, there's only one which is accredited, so we use that. And we do it well, and we try to explain. But yeah, it's not a fair game. It's not a fair game.
No. Okay. Great. Thank you. Anything to add on that one is?
No.
Brilliant.
It's just,
Brilliant.
it's important to communicate and explain, the best way possible. And I think people will start to feel it as well because it's not just about talking about all the good things. It's about feeling them. And we definitely do feel them. This is a very direct thing. It's just like when you apply, when the right biology is working under the right context, under the right conditions, there's pure magic happening. And it's the same thing with us because it's our own microbiome that is in dire need of help and good food as well.
Great one. Well done. So, guys, look, we're running out of time. We're going to have to wrap up things now. But just to remind you all that you can watch the first webinar in the two we've just done on this series of regenerative olive oil, where Tassos and Nicholas gave us a great 2 hours with questions about the health benefits of polyphenol oils. That was a really, really great webinar. And then this one, which is obviously being recorded, and give it a few hours or a day or so, and you'll be able to tune back into this one as well. So please tell your friends, tune in again if you didn't quite get everything that Nicholas presented. Great presentation, Nicholas. Thank you very much indeed. We really, really appreciate your time you give to the school and all the people. So thank you. And then, guys, we are very fortunate because we're going to, in July, starting the 10th, we're going to start our next webinar series, which is the Science of Soil Fertility in 3 steps. So this will be starting on the 10th. Obviously, look out for this coming through. There'll be an email or some sort of message to you guys. Please register for this webinar series. It will finish on the 31st of July with our house party. Whoop, whoop. We like the house party, Isidora, don't we? So please join for that one. Should be good. And without further ado, I mean, Nicholas, is there anything else you'd just like to close with? Any last thoughts? Anything before we close?
I have many thoughts all the time.
You absolutely do. I'm sure
Thank you
you
for
do.
hosting, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you for all the work you do. Yeah, very, very appreciate the work of the school.
Yeah.
It's key knowledge, and I'm very happy because 20 years ago we were on the fringe, and now finally we see some momentum. And it's not rocket science, and the impact on your farm, but mostly on the planetary health, is drastic. And if we want to overcome the challenges coming to us, climate change wise, we can all experience it. And if you're a farmer, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And yeah, we have to get digging in.
Thank you, Nicholas. And certainly from Isadora and myself, thank you for being super cool about sharing all this amazing information. And it just shows you how much hard work and dedication you put into this. And also from the school, we really appreciate you and yeah, appreciate your time and all the effort you put into the school. So, guys, Isidora, is there anything else you'd like to say before we close?
I'm extremely lucky and happy, and I'm glad that we are creating moments like this to support people, to also show it's not easy. It's not, there's no one recipe, and it takes hard work, dedication, and a lot of common sense, which is lacking lately. And yeah, so thank you so much, Nicolas. Thank you, Nick, and thank you everyone who joined us.
Brilliant. Enjoy fanning yourself. It must be very hot over there, Isadora. So I will leave you to that. Remember, guys, tune in, go back to the replays of these amazing talks, webinars from Nicolas. Take care, guys. We'll see you at the next webinar.
Thank you, everyone.
Cheers, Nicolas. Bye bye.